Hey guys, welcome back. Andrew here with Ambient Endeavors, and today we're checking out the Lightkeeper version 2 compact tube preamp and overdrive pedal from a builder called Tubesteader. They're based up in Canada, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting Ollie, getting to play this pedal out at NAMM a few weeks back, right as it was arriving to my house in the mail. And I was really eager to come back home and shoot this demo and kind of dive into this pedal. So when I think about some of my favorite guitar tones and some of my favorite guitar players, it's hard not to nearly immediately go to John Mayer. Now, we can have a brawl in the comments here if that is off-putting. If you are in agreement, chime in down there too, and we can share our favorite albums or concert moments. But I have been a huge fan of his playing, of his music for over a decade now, and I've seen him a handful of times live. Now, there's something about his sound, his approach to the kind of blues rock thing that really kind of grabbed my attention when I first started to listen to him as a younger guitar player in my teens. I had been exposed to guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, some of those older blues guys. And when Mayer came onto the scene as a younger dude out of Berkeley, there's just a refined nature to his phrasing, to his playing. There was kind of a roundness and a polish to his tone and his sound that I was really drawn to, and that kind of stood out from some of the other blues players I mentioned that had a little bit more kind of like a unrefined or brash kind of timbre or tone to their playing. So having said all of that, the channel is still called Ambient Endeavors. I'm still kind of living and breathing a lot in the ambient and indie rock kind of post-rock world. And so using that sound or kind of chasing down the gear to make or recreate that sound for me is not really a goal. I don't really do a lot of that, to be completely honest. I kind of just gravitate towards things that are useful and helpful to creating the sounds I want to make, and I don't end up making a lot of those types of sounds and tones for the stuff I play, but it was really, really cool to turn this pedal on and nearly instantly get a tone that really reminded me a lot of John Mayer's sound and his tone. It kind of brought me back to being a high schooler and going down to my bedroom after school and just like playing guitar for hours and hours, finding the notes that sounded cool, finding the phrasing that sounded cool, and finding some tones and sounds that were really special and unique. So we're going to dive into the Lightkeeper version 2 and talk about how it can get you pretty dang close to that John Mayer tone in pedal form. So at its core, the Lightkeeper version 2 is a tube-based preamp and overdrive. It's running one 12AX7 and you're using 12 volts into this pedal and then having it internally boost the voltage for that tube up to 280 volts or so. So you're cooking the tube like you would in an amplifier. It is patterned after a Dumble ODS amp, and that's kind of one of those sort of desert island unobtainium amps that guys like Mayer have, you know, a small handful of even, and have toured and recorded with extensively. So it's really kind of going after that iconic uber boutique unobtainium type sound. And the beauty of this sound, I think, and the magic as I was discovering it through playing, is that it takes its roots from the Fender circuits of the 50s and 60s, but really does a nice job of refining things in the mid-range, things in the low end, and just kind of polishing and reimagining the sound a little bit without losing the original tone, but kind of getting some magic there in the process. So what you get with this is a little bit more mid-range presence, a little bit more low-end prominence or life or body there without being too like tweedy. And for me, that was great. I love a lot of the stuff from the 60s, the silver face and black panel era amps for their cleans and their kind of edge of breakup sound and the sparkly top end that you still get with those. I'm honestly not a huge tweed fan because of the kind of overpronounced nasally in your face mid-range and low mid thing that kind of happens in some of those amps. But the sounds from this pedal and the sounds kind of drawn from those Dumble circuits really kind of finesse some of that mid-range and deliver it in a more present, more prominent way without being so overbearing like some of the tweed circuits are, in my opinion. So really, really cool. I think it's really useful, and why it kind of helps these amps stand out both as concepts and also tonally in mixes and in live settings and things. So that's what you can kind of expect. A little bit more present mid-range, a little bit more dynamic in the lows and highs too, even, instead of that kind of generally scooped mid-range that a lot of the 60s Fender amps have. So with that, we have a pretty straightforward control set here. You have a gain knob, a volume knob up here. You have a classic treble, mid, bass tone stack down here that again is quite versatile. And then you have two toggles in the middle that help to engage both a deep mode and a boost mode. So the deep mode will give you a mid-range shift that kind of switches the characteristics of the mids to kind of a lower, kind of warmer, lower mid sound. And the boost is kind of a treble boost function that allows for some more brightness, more top end texture there. If you have these toggles in the middle, you can engage that boost or the deep or both of them with this foot switch on the left. Or you can just have it always on by toggling down, or always off by toggling up. And then the right foot switch here is just the bypass for the effect. You've got also an 1/8 inch jack for a remote foot switch if you want to do that. And again, this comes with a 12 volt power supply for you to run at 12 volts and 350 milliamps there. So yeah, that's a brief overview of the Tubesteader Lightkeeper version 2. A nice slimmed down, compact version that's really pedalboard friendly. And we're going to use it in a context that for me is most applicable. You can use it in a few different ways. You can definitely throw it on your board as just an overdrive or preamp type pedal towards the front of your chain. You can use it how we're going to use it and how I used it in the intro sketch as sort of an onboard amp. So I'm using this at the end of my chain right before the UA Ox Stomp, which is acting as my speaker cab emulator. So we're throwing this as the amp into a speaker emulator, and I'll share the settings here on the side of the screen so you can see what is going on in the Ox Stomp to kind of deliver the speaker side of things. And then on to my DAW and mono. So for a more of a direct rig, we're going to show how this pedal works as your amp in that setting. You can also send it off to a power amp if you want to use it in a live setting as sort of an amplifier as well. And I believe you can also throw it in effects loops of amps and things like that too, to further color the characteristic of your amp and your tone there. So pretty versatile in terms of how you want to use it. And I think for me, adding that tube quality to a direct rig like the UA Ox Stomp just is fantastic. It gives a lot of dynamics and responsiveness to the feel of how you play in those rigs. Sometimes when it's all digital, you lose some of that response and those dynamics. And with the tube preamp here, you kind of gain some of that back, and it really feels a lot more like you're playing through an amp. So a really cool playing experience there, and I think the sounds are really great too. So we're going to switch over there. You're going to hear a Brown Amps Carbon version 2 going into Strymon LCAP version 2, heading into the Lightkeeper version 2 and on to the Ox Stomp like I mentioned. We're going to be playing an Eastwood Stormbird, a non-reverse Firebird style guitar for that section, and just give you a bunch of different sounds through this setup. Check it out.
Bye.